My salutations to all of you on behalf of Project Self and United Consciousness. We welcome you to the live sessions of Gita Odyssey. This is the fourth session, and today we will be covering Shlokas 4, 5, and 6 of chapter 2. So let's get started. So we covered up to Shloka 3 in the previous session. Shloka 3 was like a emotional treatment from Krishna to Arjuna, because we always talked about this. An emotional problem needs an emotional response. A spiritual solution may not be immediately suitable for an emotional problem. So the first 3 verses clearly painted the problem of Arjuna. His emotional, intellectual, and physical symptoms was discussed in Shloka 1. And Shloka 2 was a call to rise above that weakness. Klaibyam masmagama partha. And that was a treatment intended to break that emotional hijacking, reignites dharma. That was the purpose. And there was a lesson for everyone. For leaders, we talked about the battlefield leadership strategy. For seekers, the problem, the main challenge in their spiritual life is the binding attachment. And also it is a call to everyone to embrace that Arya standard, which talks about the nobility through action more than by birth or by heritage. So this was Shloka 2, and then 1 and 2, and then obviously we have seen Shloka 3 also. The Shloka 3 is mainly said that growth framework, because Krishna said, remember who you are. You are a warrior. And in our case, we might be a leader, we might be a seeker, or we might be the head of the family, or we might be a father, husband, brother, sister, wife, whatever it is. Remember who you are. You have a big role to play. And there are so many people looking up to you. And reset your identity from a weak person to that new role. And then shed off that weakness, rise with resolve, because this is not who you are. And this particular behavior is not going to define who you are. This is only a weak behavior that is just superimposed upon you. So just get up and act. This is what we have seen so far. So, Avanti, you wanted to add anything here on the recap?
Nothing, all covered.
Okay. So let's just listen to Shloka 1, 3, and then we can go ahead and continue. Just listen to these 3 shlokas.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः साङ्ख्ययोगः सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्तोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप.
One way of learning Bhagavad Gita is, if you read the book and if you understood the shlokas, listen to this chanting, and when you listen to the chanting, make sure that that meaning comes to you. This is how I learned Bhagavad Bhagavad Gita. So this is a very powerful way of learning Gita, just sharing. So if you have read the book, if you have understood the meaning of these verses, when that verse plays, the meaning should come to you. Then only the chanting makes sense. Otherwise, it's just a repetition. Obviously, it has its own benefit. But if you want to get that full benefit of learning Bhagavad Gita, when you listen to the shloka, if that the meaning of that shloka comes to your mind, that's so good. Okay, so as always, we start with the structure of the chapter. So we are still in that first portion of the second chapter. Here, the fundamental human problem is demonstrated through Arjuna's emotional challenges and finally he getting surrendered to Krishna. That is the shloka 1 to 10, and that is the topic we are in. So always keep that in mind. It flows from one topic to the other. There are 7 major topics, and we are on topic 1. So let's continue. Let's go to the shloka. In fact, we are going to see 4 and 5 together. So let's listen to the chanting first.
Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sanghye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhih pratiyotsyami pujarha varisudana guruna Twahi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi.
Sorry, we will see the shloka 4 and then we will see 5 and 6 together. My bad. Sorry about that. So let's see shloka 4. So here, Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna said. Remember the context. Arjuna was emotionally down, intellectually confused, physically almost down. This was the condition of Arjuna. He was completely breakdown. He was broken down. He lost his chariot and bows, and actually he was like a panic attack, emotional breakdown, depression mode. So to that Arjuna, Krishna spoke 2 shlokas. It was an emotional treatment. It was a battlefield leadership strategy. Krishna first said, this behavior is not suitable to you. This behavior is not going to bring you any glory. This is not who you are. So get up and act. Certainly you can see that had some impact on Arjuna. Krishna didn't blame Arjuna, but Krishna just like a strong treatment he gave out of love. And that started working. Now Arjuna starts speaking, and now the arguments are more rational, more logical, and he started giving out his problem. In the next few shlokas, he is just recapping his problem with a little bit more clear mind. The thinking is there a little bit more. And finally, he recognizes his own problem and he seeks help. This is what the next set of shlokas. So here Arjuna's Uvacha. Arjuna Uvacha. Katham Bhishmam aham sankhi dronam cha madhusudana ishubhi pratiyotsyami pujarhar adisudana. So here Arjuna says, O Madhusudana. Madhusudana is a name of Krishna. We already saw that. Madhusudana means the one who is capable of removing all the binding attachments. So look at the name Arjuna used to call Krishna. Remember, Krishna used to, meaning in the previous verse, Krishna used to call Arjuna Parantapa and Kaunteya, remembering her, meaning just reminding him who he is. So just now, Arjuna also uses very context-sensitive name, O Madhusudana. How? Katham. Katham aham. How I engage in a battle. Sankhya means battle. With arrows. Issue means arrows. I'm a warrior, I can engage in a war. Like if an invader come to my country, or if I need to fight with an enemy, I'm completely fine with that and I'm trained for that. And that is my profession. That is not the problem. But here the people I need to engage in the battle is Bhishma and Drona, and they are not my enemies. The term used is Pujarhar and Arisudana, they are like worthy of my worship. That makes sense. That is a real logical argument. So Arjuna put forth, it's a quest for moral clarity. So we'll deep dive into the shloka. So let's see the at a glance. So fulfilling one's responsibility is never easy, especially when it requires going against the personal preferences and the risk impacting the emotions and expectations of those we hold dear. Such moments challenge us to confront the conflict between duty and attachment. This is the problem. Krishna was asking Arjuna to do his duty. Here, doing duty is not easy. Both the choices are bad. If I take A, that is not good. If I take B, that is not good. That's both the options are equally bad. I have to pick up something from two like not so good choices. We say devil and deep sea. This exactly is the problem of Arjuna. So again, this is a section we spend a lot of time in drafting this, because it took more time for us to draft this more than the whole commentary. So this, in 3-4 sentences, you will get the gist of the shloka. So let's continue, and I'll complete my thoughts and hand over to Avanti. So the key shift at this particular point of time of the Bhagavad Gita is like complete despondency, complete dejection. Arjuna started to do logical questioning. From the emotional paralysis, he started introspecting the moral challenges, ethical challenges, and addresses Krishna as Madhusudana. And in fact, it is a plea for clarity. So, like a person in the modern times, a leader post-breakdown now asking, how do we reconcile ethics with hard decision? That's a real question. And we were perplexed in front of the situation. And then what happens? Like we are recovering, and we started asking good questions. And that is what in leadership we say always. What is that? The first sign of the first sign of healing is better questions or good questions. This is always we talk in the management circles, right? Earlier, irrational questions means we know that the person is not focused or clear. But when that person starts good questions, you know that yes, this person is in the right track. So that's exactly what Krishna observed from Arjuna. Couple of more points for this shloka. So the heart before the brain, right? So here the healing sequence is, first, Krishna's compassion stabilizes Arjuna's emotional and gave an emotional grounding. And then Arjuna is trying to get that intellectual clarity which is needed for knowledge. So this leadership insights here is, people won't care what you know until they know that you care for them. So this is a big lesson shown by Krishna in the first 2 shlokas. So in the modern times, you can see a therapist building the rapport. Like without that rapport, the therapist may be giving the best advice, but it won't go. And the CEO's listening tools, that's like when a problem happens, the CEO will listen. That is the attitude. And that's exactly what is demonstrated by Krishna. And then what happened? What exactly is Arjuna's logical argument? It's not an adharma, meaning army versus dharma champions. Is this dharma or attachment? That is the challenge. This war seems to be my dharma, but my attachment is holding me back. So this is the conflict. Personal love versus cosmic the justice or dharma. Modern day challenges, like sometimes the layoffs are needed. So cruelty versus survival. This is the moral dilemma. And this is there in almost every time, meaning we all come to, experience this challenge. So one more point. in this inner Kurukshetra, Duryodhana is our restless desires, right? So the impulse-driven actions. Drona, we have seen this in the first chapter, deep-rooted habits. This is what is rewiring our autopilot behaviors. And ego, the Bhishma, seeing beyond the social marks. The problem is when we have a challenge, we don't want to go beyond our habits and ego, because habits and egos are so much dear to me. So we defend them, justifying procrastination. That we will say that is my lifestyle. So don't think that this is Bhishma and Drona alone. This is happening to us always. Eating habit. We wanted to eat donut, but we want to eat salad, but we end up eating donuts. This is not good. But we always justify. And this is exactly what it is. Usually this ego disguises itself as self-respect. And the habits, you think that as tradition or comfort, or that is who I am. So going beyond your conventional ego and habit is not easy. And that is the inner Arjuna. We all are struggling. And this inner Kurukshetra battle is always going to talk about that. So this is the key thing. And I will stop just adding one more thing. The two names Arjuna used to call Krishna, one was Arisudhana and the other one was Madhusudana. Beautiful names. Arisudhana means you are an enemy, or you are the one who can destroy all the enemies. And now look at me. I'm not destroying my enemies because they are my loved one. So there is a subtle joke is also there. So this is the essence of the fourth shloka. Let me hand over to Avanti for her comments.
Namaskar. So, as innocuous as the shloka seems, it's got so much meaning, as we've already seen with what Rajeshji explained. The first thing is doubt. Very, very important for any seeker or any person or any human being to have doubt. Most of the time we are running through life, I know it all. I know everything. The three most magical words that I have learned in my life is I don't know. The minute you say, I don't know, you open the gateways for wisdom to come in. So for the first time now, so far, it's been a monologue with Arjuna. He's just been giving reasons and reasons and reasons as to why he should not fight a war. For the first time now, he's come down and he's like, okay, there is a problem. All my reasons may be false because already Krishna has given him his tight slap or shaking him up with the shoulders. So he's like, okay, I have a problem. And for the first time, he clearly states a problem. Again, like Rajeshji said, Madhusudana, Arisudana. When he uses these words, you actually, first-time readers of Gita, totally sympathize with Arjuna. That, of course, what he's saying is completely legitimate. How can you kill your own teacher and your grandfather, these people who I need to worship? But again, what the Gita consistently highlights is that it is not the action that determines anything. It is always the intention behind the action. So unfortunately, over here, the intention is to re-establish the righteousness for the kingdom. Not only his family has suffered, entire Kuru dynasty is in a flux. They can be completely destroyed by these naysayers, desperados, as he's been calling them all this time. So he has forgotten the main plot of this war completely, and he has taken such a personal, selfish angle to it. And that is why he's stuck in this whole mess that he's created for himself. So it's not the intention. All the time we have to remember it's not the action, it is the intention. Rajeshji said something very important about healing. For healing, this is a very necessary first step. Now, when I was training as a Reiki master, what we were taught is one statement that I hold very dear. Before you go to heal anybody, ask them, are they ready to be healed? Most of the time, all our traumas, all our problems become our kavach. Why? Because the known devil is better than the unknown devil. We are very comfortable with our problems because we know, they depress us, but we know them. We don't know the other side of problem, what we could come out of. So most people, they make their traumas their life stories. And in this one chapter that we've just finished, Arjuna has made his trauma his life story, completely shifting from what the actual reason for this battle was. So always, even when we jump into advise anybody, help anybody, I have to keep saying this. Remember chapter 1, where Krishna did not jump in to heal, to mend, to change. He waited till Arjuna started showing a want to change, to want to heal, to want to transform. Whether it's our husband, our wife, our children, or anybody, until they ask you, look, I want to become like you, or I want a different path, it's best to just keep absolutely silent. Now, one of the reasons why I like this shloka for is we take it to the parenting workshops a lot, this particular shloka. Why we take it is because Arjuna's problem over here is, how can I kill my own people? Now, kill is a huge word, but even how can I take strong action behind people who I love? Now, very many parents, especially of this age, at least last, in our generation and generations preceding, they did what was to be done. But if you look at the modern generation of how they're raising children, it's all about giving in, giving in. No, I can't hurt my child. No, they're very sensitive. No hormonal problems. No teenage problems. No, this. There is no thinking that taking that strong action against a child who's erring at this point will save that child from future catastrophes. There's a very famous story that comes out of America itself, USA, from where all of you are, is that there was one child who was a kleptomaniac. Now, many children grow out of kleptomania. Kleptomania is that, going to places and just picking up whatever you feel like. You just pick it up without paying. And a number of times he was caught in the camera, as USA is filled with all these cameras and all. Number of times he was caught up for that. And the father, he used to never take any action against him. He kept redeeming him from all the action that was taken against him. That, oh, no, he's a child, he's this, that. And many things, his child just started becoming more and more truant as he grew up, and every time the father never took any action. Finally, this whole simple thing like kleptomania he turned into a serial killer. The story is long, so I don't want to get into the whole story. Finally, he became a serial killer. He was caught, and he was given the death sentence. Just before he was put to death, they asked him, what is your last wish? And he said, I would like to meet my father. Very strong story, this. And the father comes to meet him. And when the father entered, the first thing this boy does, who's a young boy now, not a small child, gives that father a tight slap. And he says, if you had stopped me, when I was doing that simple thing, when I was engaged in kleptomania, this wouldn't have come to this point. I wouldn't be a serial killer, and I wouldn't be killed today. So this is what we have to remember, whether it's our loved one. If we really love somebody, it is for us to stand up and take the stand. Please do the right thing. Even friendships, we are very comfortable with friends who flatter us. But look for friends who will call you up, who will tell you where you're going wrong, who will tell you where you're erring. Otherwise, you're never going to improve. So very, very strong message in this shloka, that we have to take the right action when it is needed, no matter who's in front of us. And the second thing is, surround yourself with friends who will tell you to take the right action, keep you from doing the wrong action, and be brave enough to follow through. So that was shloka 4 for you.
So the reflective prompt here is, this is for you to think through the rest of the week. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between personal affinity and moral duty or duty? What did you choose? How did your choice play out eventually? Please reflect upon this. This is the reflective prompt for the shloka. And finally, the wisdom, the quote is, the most brutal battles are fought not against the daunting enemies, but raging conflicts within. So this is very powerful. The most struggling battle is not the battle outside, but the battle within. So let's continue with the shloka 5 and 6 together. So when you listen to the chanting, please pay attention. You can see that the meter is changing. So in Mahabharata, there are two meters used. Meter means chandas. The chanda means it is the one of the Vedanga. We talked about this in the earlier classes. Like, how do you compose a particular shloka? So here you see a longer meter is used because for two reasons. When you chant, it appears to be different. You see, right? Olden days, like when Vyasa wanted to highlight something or something needs to be highlighted, the meter changes. So you see that often in the Gita, and the meter followed for this shloka and the next few shlokas is Trishtup. The conventional meter is Anushtup, and this meter is Trishtup. So let's listen to the shloka first.
Arjuna hatva hi mahanubavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke hatvartha kamamstu guruni haiva bhunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan na chaitadvidmah kataranno gariyah Yadva jayema yadivano jayeyuhu Yaneva hatva na jijivishamaha Teva sthitaf pramukhe dhartarashtraha.
So we are going to see shloka 5 and 6 together. So first we will see the literal meaning, and then we will see the at a glance the two shlokas together, and after that we will deep dive into some of the insights. So here Arjuna tells, Guru nahatvahi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaichyam apta api iha loke hastvarti kamamstu guruni haiva punjiya Bhogan Rudhira Pradigdhan. This is the shloka. So he says, it is far better for me to live on alms, bhaichyam, bhiksha, in this world than killing these esteemed teachers. They are represented as Mahanubhavan, Maha Anubhava, the people with great experience, noble people. Slaying them even for the sake of wealth and desires, arthartha kaman. Artha means wealth or the pleasures here, artha. Artha kaman. Artha and kaman. Kama means pleasure. So killing these people for artha kaman actually would taint any pleasure I enjoy, because punjiya bhogan rutirada pradaktan. Because whatever I am enjoying, it will be filled with their blood. That is what Arjuna said. Very logical again. And then he continues to say, I am unable to determine what is better, either to conquer them or allow them to get conquered me. And then he say, like in front of me, there are people, the Dhritarashtra's children and the Kaurava army are standing. Actually, we don't want to kill them. The very same people are standing there with a determination of fighting with us. So I am completely confused, Arjuna said. I don't know what to do. I don't know what is right here. That is where Arjuna is just understanding his helplessness and his lack of clarity. So let's continue. So at a glance, what we will see is the next two shlokas is going to witness Arjuna's heart-wrenching stumble into an impossible choice, right? Bereft of the positive outcome, whichever he decides, right? Here he says a dilemma, meaning it is a common dilemma. Most of the human being face in lesser or greater proportion. I find myself thrown between two difficult choices, as I was talking earlier, both fraught with unfavorable outcomes. I have to make a choice, and both the choices are not the dearest choices of mine. Part of me contemplate escaping the situation, even knowing that it is not the right course. Yet, even if I follow through with my duty, I left questioning whether the success will truly bring satisfaction to me. This is very important. Here, when both the choices are not so dear to me, even if I succeed in my choice, that may not give me the best experience. This is the dilemma. And I'm pretty sure all of you might have faced this at some point or the other. You may have to make choice from two not so good choices. You may have to select from two not so good choices. This is exactly what Arjuna. And he says, I'm confused. I don't know. Even if whatever I select and I'm victorious, I will not be happy and contented. That is the problem. So let's continue further. Okay. So this is the classic expression, right? Between double and deep sea. We all heard this phrase. So Arjuna's perception. The option here is either fight the battle or flee the battle and run away. So there is a technical term he uses here in the previous shloka, right? So in this shloka, Shreyo Bhoktum Bhaichyamapi Haloke. He said it is better to go and take Bhiksha. We think that Bhiksha is a simple word, but it is a technical word used in the Vedantic literature. See, there are only two types of people, as per the scriptures, are allowed to take Bhiksha. One is the students, and the other one is sannyasis. Nobody else is allowed to beg Bhiksha. And what is the scripture used to say? In a country, if somebody asks for Bhiksha other than these two categories, that is not so good of the king. It's a bad mark on the king. You see, when we study Ramayana, you see, I was reading this Rama Rajya. You see what exactly that country was. Everybody has food. Nobody will ask Bhiksha, or nobody will ask for money or any other favor. Every generation used to handle more than what they received from their parents to the children, because they are the custodian of that wealth. Not like modern times, like whatever you inherit, you spend and then go away. Like if I inherit $100, I am only a custodian of that. In Rama Raja, it is said that $100 is for some, like I'm saving it for the family for some emergency. When a pandemic comes, like when an epidemic comes, that is the time you should use. That is not for you. You are only a custodian. Whatever you get, you have to hand over. That's very important. So here, the thing is that Arjuna expresses the desire that he is going to take Bhiksha. What does that mean? He knows Dharma Shastra. He knows that as a warrior, as a Grihastha, he is not allowed to take Bhiksha. And Arjuna is not the one who is going to violate that. And then he say that I'm going to take Bhiksha means what? He is thinking of renouncing the world and going to as a sannyasi to Himalayas. So this false renunciation, that is why we called. Both the options feel equally wrong. And this is equally, you see, like that's what the diagram I gave. The Arjuna sitting in crisis, a modern leader, like he is completely confused. So what Arjuna is failing to understand is that the war he is engaging is a Dharma Yudha. So the Dharma Yudha is defined in the scriptures very well. Meaning the shloka is not going to talk about this, but we just wanted to give you a glimpse, because sometimes you may feel that why should he fight? The definition of the Dharma Yudha is if you don't engage in that war, it is more damaging than you engaging in the war. The war is definitely bad. It is going to create some negative consequences. But if you don't engage in that war, the consequences will be much more. and you should be engaging in a war at that time. That is the definition of Dharma Yudha given by the scriptures. A classic example is the World War II, like when that allies, meaning if they hadn't engaged that war, what would have been the situation? Right? So that was a Dharma Yudha. So meaning fighting Nazis to save the humanity, if they hadn't engaged, that terrible ideology would have overtaken the entire world. So not fighting the war, if that brings more after effects than fighting the war, you should engage in that war. And Mahabharata war was one such war. You will see that many accounts or many description why that is given. So Arjuna completely forgets that because he was completely between his choices. So modern connection, like sometimes you have a you meaning some people, sometimes you think you quit or compromise or relationship. Should I tolerate this or exit? These are some of the crossroads. And it's pretty much that is what is Arjuna's challenge here. So between devil and deep sea. Continuing, and sannyasa here. Well, sannyasa should not be used as an escapism, right? So there are three types of sannyasas, they say. One is vidvat sannyasa. Again, we are going to see this in the 3rd chapter and the 4th chapter, but just a fast forward. Vidvat sannyasa means somebody who is taking you don't need to change the cloth or anything like that. When you have that knowledge, when you renounce your individuality and go beyond that, automatically you become a sannyasa. You don't need a cloth or a dress or anything like that. That is the true sannyasa. In the 5th chapter, you see this. Krishna brilliantly defines. Kamya karma nyasam is the sannyasa. That is beautifully expressed. Second one is vividisha sannyasa. Vividisha sannyasa is what, like you take sannyasa with a very purpose, like you are not interested in worldly activities. You are only interested in pursuing the scriptures. Such people, they may not be self-realized, they may not be enlightened, but they can take sannyasa. That is vividisha sannyasa. And the last category is called apat sannyasa. When you get some struggle, when like a problem happens, you run away. And yes, there are certain situations you can take it, but sannyasa should not be used as an escapism. Arjuna is a warrior by his nature. He is not ready or fit for sannyasa. He is not qualified for sannyasa at this point of time. So taking sannyasa is an escapism for him. And this type of forcing renunciation, it's a suppression and it will going to explode a later point of time. See, burned out victims becoming reluctant monks. These people are life dropouts and they will be miserable in their monk mode. That is guaranteed. So taking sannyasa is a great thing, but one should do only with a positive mindset. We are going to see this in chapter 3, 4, 5. And becoming a monk, meaning wearing that orange robe, is absolutely not a mandatory requirement. In fact, Krishna tells the other path is much easier. So we will see that. So the danger of forced renunciation, that is what, because Arjuna used that word pagishyam, that is why we had to talk about this. So let's continue. And here the inner struggle, it is like whatever Arjuna is going through, it's a growth through that discomfort, right? Like why the change feels impossible, because the comfort of like habits. Arjuna clinging into his family bonds. So we also do that. We protect toxic pattern in our mind. Like we can say that procrastination, feel safe. We will say that, okay, I don't want to take any risk. I don't want to make a career change. Despite of the career cost, You can say that you can justify your procrastination. So the turning point in Arjuna's moment is later point of time, he realizes that I am confused. And then immediately he will be eligible as a student. We will see that in Shloka 8. And in our version, this is not working. I need to open for growth. I need to open for change. So the beautiful diagram of a like a butterfly before it comes. Your struggle is the cocoon, not the cage, right? So you break the cage and eventually you will come out. And that is the struggle. So just remember that. And modern parallels, like in health, donut versus salad, immediate pleasure versus long-term pain. Most of the times we'll compromise because we are going to defend our habit. Career, toxic job security versus entrepreneurial risk. Then relationship, familiar dysfunction versus lonely growth. There are several things we can consider. So this is what the struggle of Arjuna in the modern terms. Okay, so let me hand over to Avanti for her comment.
So, Shloka 5. Now we hear that word bhiksha that so beautifully Rajesh has explained. If you go to see, it's a complete contradiction to who Arjuna is. I mean, yes, the Shastras say that only a monk and a student cannot take, should not, can take bhiksha and the rest cannot. For a king to be saying, in our parlance, it's begging. It's better to go. If you really put it down to simple, crude language, it's better to take a begging bowl and go beg than to fight this war. Now, if we think of it, the excuses we make to ourselves for a king, even for a normal person who's not a king, even for a common person within the Samrajya of us in this context, would we ever think of begging? Would we ever think of just, and actually there are people who without working and all take all the credit to themselves. That Krishna calls out as a thief later on. They're thieves who don't put in any work. So even for a common person, they would think twice that the last option would be to beg. Think even for yourself. Unless you're in dire straits, would you ever ask anybody for help? And especially this, asking somebody to sustain you. You would pull along. The hardest thing in the modern age is to ask for help. On the physical level, on the material level, on the emotional level, on the intellectual level. We cannot ask for help. How can a king say it's okay to beg? Another thing is that what stands out in these particular shlokas is we get this question all the time. I've had private calls coming to me saying that, really, ever since I've come onto the path of Gita, or ever since I've come onto the path of yoga, this is my true calling. I have felt this all my life and I don't know why I ever got married. I don't know why I ever got into samsara. I don't know, all these questions. How do I avoid samsara now and take this up full time? The Bhagavad Gita completely puts a cross against that. There is no debate over here. Why have you made that choice of getting married and coming into samsara and all? Guess it's not even a conscious choice on your part. It's a very karmic. You have to get into it very deep to understand that it happens because of that is the way you have to live. It's a karmic consequence that you have all these people depending on you. You have all these people around you. And of course, when you listen to scriptures, the same problem Arjuna had. Arjuna was all out to fight the war. Suddenly, Krishna in chapter 2 tells him he starts telling him, such high things. This is, the path of renunciation, path of knowledge, all of this, whatever comes to him. Obviously, we are going to feel that this is a better option. Why should we sit and deal with our mortal problems? Why should we deal with that irritating wife? Why should we deal with our, children who are struggling so much or whatever it is? We cannot take up renunciation. We cannot even start devoting more time to spirituality. We cannot do that. And I've seen with my own eyes people who are taking their attention completely off their grahastha life to focus on spirituality. And the grahastha life is going into the dustbin, to put it very crudely. One thing is sure, for anybody who's Devi Upasak, they'll understand one thing, is that until a householder fulfills their householder duties, no spiritual gains can be had. Never, ever. The whole concept of householder duties is to grow spiritually. And it is actually the easiest path. Because left, right, and center, we are being given this syllabus, study this syllabus. Left, right, and center, we are being given tests. We are being tested. If we don't put this knowledge into application in our grahastha life and decide to sit with the syllabus for the rest of our life, we're not going to get anywhere. So even if you try, it's not going to happen. Then again, when you look at Arjuna, you have to really read the words properly, what words he's using. He's saying, I don't want enjoyments, but he's also saying that my enjoyments will be tainted with blood. Do you see the dichotomy? That it's not that I don't want this enjoyment. I don't want to feel guilty about enjoying these enjoyments. There was no necessity for him to add that, oh, it will be tainted with blood, that I'll always feel guilty that I've killed these people. So these excuses that we make in our life repeatedly is something that we have to keep in mind all the time. That is what prevents us from doing what is right. Another thing over here, what is at play now in chapter 18, we look at this very well, the intellects. There's sattvic intellect, there's rajasic intellect, there's tamasic intellect. We'll look at it in greater detail in chapter 18. But to put it simply, sattvic intellect knows this ought to be done, this is not ought to be done. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a wife, whether you're a husband, whether you're in the company. A rajasic intellect speeds off and concludes something wrong and says, yes, this is it. And a tamasic intellect mistakes righteousness for unrighteousness and vice versa. Now over here, as you'll see, Arjuna's complete rajasic intellect is in play. He is rajasic, he is a warrior, but that intellect is in play, over here, where he's completely concluded wrongly the whole situation, taken such a selfish angle that it's all about I, me, myself, nothing else matters, and decided not to fight the war. Now, for the first time in these shlokas, he said, okay, maybe, which is better? Like he asked in that thing, like, I don't know which is better. He doesn't ask Krishna yet. He just expresses that doubt. I don't know which is better. Should I fight with them or should I let them conquer me? So to come to that point also, it needs something like Krishna standing beside you. Krishna is not standing beside us, but we have the Bhagavad Gita. That is why it is all important over and over and over to go through chapter 1 and these 10 verses of chapter 2. Only then you will realize where you are erring. You'll be able to connect some problem that the Gita can solve for you. One last thing I'd like to say, when Rajeshi talked about the meter change, we have spent a lot of time in book 1 explaining what the meters are, how they change, why they change. So it would be a good time now, because this is the first time in the Bhagavad Gita that the meter has changed. It's a good time to go back to book 1, and in the introduction only, we've given this quite a detailed explanation of this. So please look through that, because that is something that will keep playing. Once you know why the meter is changing, every time the meter changes, you will pay greater attention.
Great. Okay, so here the prompt is, have you ever faced a situation where every choice seems to be unfavorable? How did you navigate that dilemma? And what guided your decision-making process? This is such an important prompt. If you reflect upon this, this is how you can dig what is inside you. Sometimes we may not see ourselves properly. You always see a different self. And these are the prompts that helps you to see yourselves properly. So please follow this. And finally, we will talk about the quote. So when every choice appears to be impossible, let purpose, not preference, guide your steps. This is what Krishna tells. And let's just do the recap of this lesson. So Arjuna's dilemma here was fight or flee. And the Dharma Yudha, we talked about what is Dharma Yudha, that is forgotten. And reject escapism, because sannyasa is not running away from duty. Forcing monk mode, actually it will backfires. So this is we talked. And your toolkit is always ask what serves the greater good, because that is what is Dharma Yudha. Then align the action with your nature and duty, so dharma, which we'll see later, and avoid spiritual bypassing. This is very important, because a lot of people say that I'm spiritual, so I skip, that attitude is not good. So with that, we will conclude today's session. Next week, we will cover the next two shlokas, 7 and 8. They are very important shlokas. If you take top 10 shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, one of the shloka is Karpanya Dosho Pakata Swabhava. So we will explore that next week.